Each House in Baltimore and WNST.net. If you were on the WNST text service sometime Wednesday, you know about the Zach Britton injury and the Achilles tear. That's all brought to you, of course, when you get those texts by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. I have been joking about Manny Machado. And, I had reached to this guy to do some radio this week for a number of reasons. I mean, let's start at the top, which is we may be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars 2 weeks from now. And he is a lifer Baltimorean who has made a life in Jacksonville in the warm sunshine down there, doing all things television. He has samsportsline.com on the web. You can follow him at Sam Kouvaris out on Twitter. And he is a Baltimorean at heart and an Orioles fan at heart. And you still got Orioles in your bloodline, Sam, right? I mean, this whole Baltimore thing never leaves you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the only team I root for. In fact, when you become a sports journalist, so to speak, you have to have a certain dispassionate approach to everybody that you cover and you talk to. But, I can't help it. I mean, every time I look at the Orioles in the standings and who they're thinking about getting, I wonder, can he pitch? So.
Well, you know what? You and I get together a lot, and I would think that you're going to be a guest on the program here 2 weeks from now for a Ravens-Jaguars get-together. So let me just start by saying you got a real football team there, right? And I don't think anybody thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl. I can go to Vegas and bet that if you think we'll be getting together in Minnesota 6-7 weeks from now. But certainly the defense is capable, and it's the first time there's some oxygen there for football, and probably doesn't come at a bad time with the Florida States and the Floridas and not being involved as well, right? So there is interest in the football team there.
All that's true, and it taught us this year that defense travels no matter what. And the Jaguars made 3 acquisitions defensively: Calais Campbell, A.J. Bouye, and Barry Church, and plugged them in as starters. And not only have they been as good as hoped, but probably better. The other thing that happened is that it equaled the kind of growth and maturization of some young players like Telvin Smith and Jalen Ramsey, Miles Jack, guys that played, you knew they had talent, and you thought that this might happen for the Jaguars next year. But they all kind of came together in interlocking parts, and they've also been incredibly healthy on defense all year long. They've missed one starter for 2 games, and that was Telvin Smith, who was in a concussion protocol. And so on that side of the football, they're solid. Both of their cornerbacks are the AFC starters in Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Bouye. So you got those 2 guys. You got good, solid guys up front, starting with Calais Campbell. They acquired Marcel Darius in the middle of the year for a draft pick as he was unhappy in Buffalo, and they were dumping salary, and the Jaguars certainly had plenty of cap. And then you get a Maryland guy like Yannick Ngakoue, who really should have been in the Pro Bowl. The guy is an incredible guy coming off the edge and really as they like to say, a high motor, good guy, and really fun to root for because he wants to get it done. You can tell when you go in the locker room, you talk to these guys, this guy wants to be great, and that's always a fun thing to have. So defensively, they're absolutely legit. Their statistics show that they're, you can say they're the best defense in the league, but outside of the stats, they pass the eye test when you watch them. They're putting pressure on the quarterback. They're running balls down in the secondary that are in the air for a second and a half. And then offensively, Leonard Fournette, although he's missed 3 games this year, 1 by suspension and 2 by injury, is also the real deal. I mean, when you see this guy, I don't know if you saw that stat that he so far has been the fastest guy in the NFL carrying the football at over 22 miles an hour. And the offensive line has kind of gelled because I can tell you that at the end of the preseason, we were convinced that they were going to have to revamp the offensive line and this team was going to win maybe 4 games. The over-under was 6.5, and we all would have taken the under without question. So, and then the X factor is Bortles.
Sure.
And, statistically, in December, he's the best quarterback in the league. He's got the highest rating, thrown for almost 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So, and he's only been sacked twice. In one of those, he ran out of bounds. So it's all these things coming together at the right time. But the big thing, Nestor, is defense travels. You know that in Baltimore. You saw that happen, a decade ago and 15 years ago, but it keeps you in games. And if the Jaguars don't turn it over offensively, they'll be in every game they play.
Sam Kouvaris joining us here from Jacksonville. And, one last thing on the Jaguars. I mean, we got our asses kicked in Wembley. I mean, like, royally throttled. I mean, it's 41-0. The knee, and we'll get to the knee in Baltimore and your old Colt memories and your old Jacksonville memories before there was a team there and all that. It's fascinating to me that as a fan, I look at this like, look, I'll be glad to be playing anyone 2 weeks from now. I have a flight to Kansas City. I'll have some nice barbecue. I'll pack a turtleneck and my gloves and my ear warmers, or I'll go to Jacksonville and hang out at the pool with you, and maybe it'll be 67 degrees and be halfway decent, and I can go to the game in a windbreaker. It doesn't matter to me, and I think the Ravens will travel well to either one of those places, but I don't think there's any intimidation level about going and playing the Jaguars. Are they a team you don't want to see right now, in your opinion, Sam? I mean, are they equipped to beat the Ravens up again 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, because defensively they're still healthy and they're on a roll. They have got such amount of swagger defensively that they start getting after the quarterback, and there's not a lot you could do. The addition of Darius at defensive tackle has really clogged the middle up, and people have a real tough time running the football against the Jaguars, and that's where both Ramsey and Bouye both of them have baited quarterbacks into throwing interceptions, and not just anybody. I mean, Russell Wilson and Phillip Rivers. So, these guys are guys that'll trail behind a receiver by a step, make him look open, and they've got that makeup speed that can make a difference. You don't want to face the Jaguars right now because they're super confident, and they're hot, and they're healthy. And that's the three things that happen in December that can make you a real playoff threat.
Sam, give everybody your background in Baltimore. And I always ask you this because I think you'll tell the story better than I'll tell the story. But your background with the Colts and 33rd Street, Memorial Stadium, and all of those memories and all the stuff, the weirdness of your career. And look, I woke up in Cleveland the other day on Sunday and Monday where they're 0-13. You've had a lot of that's going on in Jacksonville and an ownership change. Jerry Richardson's now selling off the Panthers down there. Those were the two cities that got teams ahead of Baltimore. We stole a team from Cleveland, and it's never been right. And the weirdest part is, on the schedule this week, Sam, the Colts are coming to Baltimore, and we have empty seats for the first time in our 22 years here. You're very familiar with full Colt memories and empty Colt memories. You're a little bit older than me. God bless you. But I've written about the ghost of Baltimore football, past, present, and future, and I know that the first empty seats that my father was a part of after Unitas got sent off to San Diego, that led to a drunk owner, that led to some bad drafts, that led to him landing a helicopter down there in the Gator Bowl in your community of Jacksonville. And, David Lamb loves to tell me those stories about Drunk Bob showing up down there and promising the sun, the moon, and the stars to the Jacksonville people. It's a long storied history, but it starts with empty seats and disdain for the team. And we've got that going on here in the aftermath of the knee in a pretty big way.
Yeah, it was so fascinating to have grown up in Baltimore in the golden age of not just the Colts, but the Orioles and everything that happened there. And it's, to me, kind of a travesty at how the league treated the town to begin with. I mean, they were all over the Browns. Oh, don't worry, we'll get you a team. You can call them the Browns, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when Irsay snuck out in the middle of the night in '84, nobody said, oh, Baltimore deserves a team, and any team here should be called the Colts. They just let him take it and didn't do anything because they were so afraid of a variety of lawsuits. And that's the shame of it, because I know that the Ravens are, Baltimore's team and won a Super Bowl, and they've kind of become part of the culture there. But, there are so many people that remember the history of the Colts, and as you mentioned, whether it's John Unitas and Raymond Berry, and in fact, not speaking out of school, but I'm on the Hall of Fame committee, and one member of the committee said to me once, Chris Carter is the greatest boundary receiver in the history of the game. And I looked at him and I said, never heard of Raymond Berry? What's the matter with you? So
Right, sticking up for the old Colts, right?
That kind of perspective is sometimes lost in this instant gratification media age. But Memorial Stadium, I was there in '77 in the Ghost to the Post game among 30,000 extra people sitting in the aisles that I paid $5 to a guy guarding the gate.
I had a real ticket that day, Sam. My dad brought it home. I came home from school. I'll never forget it. I came home from school, and my dad had taken the bus over to the stadium. We had obstructed view seats in Section 38, so I can tell you exactly where I was sitting. I've got my ticket stub on the wall. And Christmas Eve, I mean, it's an incredible story to tell this week, right? I mean, what happened 6 years later, that team was gone, literally, right? I mean, that's
exactly.
And you never would have known that. And, hey, the people in St. Louis and San Diego and Oakland, right, have been living with this for 20 years, and their teams are gone now.
And it's a business, and you realize that, and the owners are the ones that are pushing this public-private partnership, but basically it's your city investing in a football team and lining the pockets of the owners, which Shad Khan bought the team in 2012, paid $770 million for it, $660 in cash, and assumed $110 million in debt from the league, which he turned around and wrote a check and paid off. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are about the 27th or 28th most expensive team, and they're worth $2.3 billion now. So, I mean, it's a business, and I think that certainly Baltimore fans know that and recognize that, and that's why it's incumbent on the owners to make better decisions about how they treat their fans. Certainly winning fixes everything, but the whole kneeling thing in London, my phone blew up because Jacksonville, I don't know if you know this or not, but Jacksonville originally wasn't even supposed to be a city. We had 4 major military bases here, and it was only supposed to be a military installation. And one of them moved. They moved the Master Jet base out of here back up to Oceana, outside of Norfolk. But still, NAS Jax is here, Kings Bay, the big sub base is here, as well as Mayport, which is the largest Southern command, with a port that can handle carriers at this point. So it's still a massive military town. A big part of the Jaguars' season ticket base either has served in the military or have friends who have served in the military. And when those guys knelt, particularly on foreign soil, and then stood up for God Save the Queen, it was very confusing for fans here because they're so rabid about the visceral connection with teams that say Jacksonville on their jersey that they didn't understand why these guys would do that and in front of the world representing their town. The amazing thing to me, Nestor, is that how surprised the Jaguars were from an administration standpoint at the blowback that they got. And I said, somebody ought to probably lose their job out of that, because that's a lack of understanding of the culture of the city, that if you're going to disrespect the flag, regardless of what your political bent is in terms of, whether you think it's a workplace issue or it's a freedom of speech issue, the optics are not good when your fan base considers themselves, in large part, a part of the military community, either way. So,
certainly, the people that tell us stick to sports, there's a lot of politics that went through this as well, with Trump baiting the players that weekend and the community and the outrage. And look, all that is, I don't want to say it's water, because it's not. It's still very active and it's still very, hot buttony. But how do the teams respond? And certainly in a stadium here, Sam, you've seen this thing for a generation now, but you also saw it fractured at one point, and you had pissed off parents, and you and I were angry as younger men about everything that happened with Irsay and the money grab. But the stadium was empty. The city turned on him, and the city baited him to take the team out, and he did. And he baited the city, and it was very acrimonious. Very, very acrimonious. Obviously, maybe even more acrimonious than we remember it when you start to peel back the onion of how raw those emotions were when I saw my father crying that morning, March 28, 1984. But dude, you're also in Jacksonville where, like, you won the expansion derby, and it was going to be the gateway to the South, and they were going to sell 80,000 tickets at the Gator Bowl, and, you know, the Jaguars are going to catch on, and they had a nice start. And then it just became a place where they have to wrap seats and wrap more seats, and the team's no good. And you've lived through all of that. We haven't been through that here. We've had 22 years of, like, Camelot, man. I mean, we've had one general manager, two coaches for the most part, you know, a quarterback, a couple of parades, statues built. But we've also had Ray Lewis in a jumpsuit, Jamal Lewis in a jumpsuit, and Ray Rice with the left hook in a glass elevator, and, you know, and then all the other league problems with televisions being good and the experience being good at home and PSLs. And this is the first choppy waters for the franchise of the Baltimore Ravens, and it comes on the back end of this very dug-in political issue where these people are saying, I'm never going back. And I don't know that they're ever going to go back, and I don't know what's going to become of the franchise if they're going to have 20,000 empty seats every week for football games, because it's not a good look here.
What is the capacity of the stadium that the Ravens play in these
68-ish.
Okay, so you talk about wrapping seats. You know, the Jaguar Stadium holds 85,000 seats as mandated by the city council here in order to accommodate what's now called the Tax Slayer Bowl, as well as we host the Florida-Georgia SEC matchup every year.
I got to come to that. One year, I'm gonna go to that game with you. I keep threatening.
You need to come to that.
Yes.
Exactly. So every stadium that's built has been built in the NFL since the Jaguars became a franchise in 1995 is about what you just said: 68, 65, 67,000 in Pittsburgh, 65,000 in Cincinnati, 67,000 in Cleveland. So that's the right number. Our stadium was built to accommodate two games a year and to be the home of a football team. So to ask them to realistically sell 85,000 seats in a town where at 75,000, 1 out of every 11 people in your town has to be in the stadium is unrealistic. For them to sell 60,000 tickets, which they have consistently done, is the right number, and that's the number that you look at almost every stadium in the country, including in Baltimore. But the disgruntled fan is not coming back because, and you were in London and I was in London, I went in the Jaguar locker room afterwards and I asked maybe a dozen players, why did you kneel? Every single one of them could not give me an answer except he's not going to tell me what to do. They were mad at the president is what they were. They were mad at the president, like you said. The things that he had said at that rally on that Friday night riled the players up to the point where they were going to show that he can't tell them what to do.
Well, their phones were also blowing up from their communities and their friends at home saying, you know, you're not going to let that happen, right?
Right, but they didn't agree or disagree any more or less with Colin Kaepernick than they did the day before. But because the president brought himself into the discussion and spoke directly about players, it made them mad. When you asked them about when they stood up for God Save the Queen, they kind of shrugged their shoulders. So the answer to that is clearly they never studied any history in that regard, because if they were going to kneel down for the national anthem, then you probably would lay down for God Save the Queen based on the history in England. Nonetheless, it was a bad optic. It was a strategic error, particularly on foreign soil in a town like Jacksonville that has a large military presence. And I know hundreds of people who sent their tickets back and demanded their money back, and they're never going again because it went from a fun afternoon in the sun, tailgating and watching a team in your hometown to a business political equation that polarizes people versus bringing everybody together for 5 or 6 hours just to enjoy themselves. And the league, I think the league's got a big problem with this. They're going to have to figure this out in order to bring fans, particularly those with some wherewithal, to buy 10 season tickets, to buy Sky Suites, to use it as an entertainment venue. I will say this, though, and we've seen it over and over and over, winning almost cures everything.
Is it going to be full down there 2 weeks from now if you are the purple destination? I mean, is it going to feel vibrant and crazy and home field advantage-y? I mean, no offense, man. I mean, I've never really seen it like that. I mean, not even back when Brunel was there was it really bonkers, tough ticket kind of. It just because the stadium's so big too. I mean, I feel you on all of that and the population, and I've gotten over the fact that somehow Paul Tagliabue thought the team was better served there than here, and I guess I'll get to that and wrap up on that. But will it be full 2 weeks from now?
Oh yeah, and they've had 3 consecutive home games. Played the Colts, beat them handily. Played the Seahawks, that a game that was flexed to the afternoon. That was a very popular ticket. And then last week against Houston, you couldn't get a ticket; it was sold out. So, well, you can always get a ticket, but what I'm saying is that you couldn't walk up to the window and buy a ticket. All the tickets were sold. So it was raucous, more feeling like 1996 than 99 or 2007 when the Jaguars went to the playoffs. 1996, it was the second year of the franchise. The city had tried for 20 years to get on the radar of the NFL and eventually got a team. And they got good so fast that there was such a, as I said before, visceral connection with the team that it was a fun place to go to, and it was a hard ticket to get to, and it was a tough place for other teams to play because, particularly in that north end zone where it's enclosed. So, yeah, it'll be the Jaguars get a home playoff game, regardless of who the opponent is. It'll be a sellout. People will be loud. And the difference is that it's going to be, it's 80 here today, Nestor. Literally.
God bless you, Sam. You left Baltimore. You did okay.
They're going to the beach today. Come on.
Hey, last thing for you. These communities were sort of tied at the hip along with St. Louis and Nashville and, anybody who was in the Derby back in the day, and you kind of won the Derby. We went and stole the team. From a fan's perspective and a PSL owner, I don't know what the franchises owe the fans other than, as you've said, winning cures everything, winning. And I've, come to, now that I'm turning 50 this year, come to agree with you on that it is just about winning. It's not that way for you and me who love sports and do sports and have made a life of sports, but for the casual, that non-15, 20% all the way in all the time kind of person as a fringe thing, it's a hobby, and if it's a good movie, they'll see it. If it's a bad movie, they'll find another movie to see. And, I guess all these years in, to see the Ravens in this spot after 22 years, I think, what did you expect? We could have been Jacksonville. No offense, Sam, but I would take the Ravens over almost any other franchise over the last 22 years. The franchise has done okay by the community and by the fans here. They've made good on whatever that promise was to be competitive and try to make the home team proud. And I do say that even on the back end of Ray Rice and Jamal Lewis and Ray Lewis and whatever transgressions that the franchise has had, it's been a good thing for Baltimore. And I know you would agree in Jacksonville, even though the team has stunk and has had its problems and has been sold and sells a game off to London, it's a lot better town having the Jaguars than if that team would have come to Baltimore instead.
Oh, absolutely. And, you're lucky that, as you said, you've had one general manager who has made a lot of really good decisions. The Jaguars, after they released Tom Coughlin, who basically would not only be the head coach. He at the time, people forget, Coughlin was the head coach and the general manager at the same time from the Parcells School. And Wayne Weaver didn't want to do that anymore, and Coughlin disagreed, so they parted ways. And, Weaver was the right owner at the right time. He's the reason we have a team, 100% the reason we have a team, because he was popular among the NFL owners at the time when they were handing out a franchise. And so he always had to have a team that looked like it was going to be competitive. And you can do that. You can always make your team 7-9, 8-8 that looks like it's going to win 9 or 10 games, and fans will buy tickets. But that's not how you follow the cyclical nature of the NFL of being good. The Jaguars missed 2 different cycles of being good. They've been in the wilderness for 10 years, at least. they've been gone because the decisions that were made about getting guys like Matt Jones and Derek Harvey and just, terrible, bad players who were first-round picks. You can't miss 6 years in a row on your first-round pick and expect to be competitive and not have a consistent quarterback like the Ravens have had. So, yeah, it's a town that missed it two different times when it goes up and down. And part of it was because Weaver was positioning the team to sell it, which made it easy for him to kind of piecemeal here and there to make it a team that looked like it was going to be about a 500 team that maybe could steal a couple games and get into the playoffs. You can do that in the NFL and never win the Super Bowl and never lose more than 9 games either. But that's not how you reach the eventual promised land there by winning a championship. The only way you do it is either sign Tom Brady or accept the cycles of up and down that happen in the league because of free agency and the way the draft works. And if you miss as often as the Jaguars did, you're going to be bad for at least a decade.
Well, I hope we do catch up a couple weeks from now. If I make it to Jacksonville, great. Kansas City, I'll be sort of like, what the old entertainers say. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be anywhere. So if they're playing football the weekend of January 5th, I'm somewhere good that I want to be.
That's right.
Sam, I appreciate all the insights and all the cold histories and the memories, and I think you play such a unique role having been in Jacksonville and having been a Baltimore guy that I definitely wanted to hear you out, and certainly incredible wealth of information on the background of Jacksonville and the military background there, which I did not know. So I love bringing smarter people on and teaching me things, Sam. So thanks for being that guy in my world. I appreciate it, man.
Just like the Toronto Maple Leafs have the best uniform in the NHL,
yes,
the Colts still have the best uniform in the NFL. Nice, classic blue and white.
Something about it's a little stained these days for me. It doesn't move my heart the way it once did when I was a younger man.
That's true.
Sam, be well, man. They're 3-11. They don't look as attractive as they did with Peyton Manning either. Sam Kouvaris joining us here from Jacksonville. You can find him at samsportsline.com as well as at Sam Kouvaris. That's Kouvaris, the pride of Woodlawn and the West Side, and been down in Jacksonville for several decades now. I don't want to date him too much, but knows a lot, as is obvious there, and you can follow along there. We might be playing down in Jacksonville in a couple weeks. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you're celebrating, celebrate away. I'm celebrating the fact that I get to wear my purple ho-ho hat out on YouTube and on WNSTV. Nasty at WNST.net is the way to find me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.